So we left off with the second example of shaking, which is when Samson was socializing with the Philistines who were involved in false worship, and he was involved with Delilah. A woman in the Bible is symbolic of the church, either a pure church or an impure or apostate church. So you can see the symbology. So he was doing this, and then he woke up after spending the night with her, and the power and anointing of the Lord had left him. The Philistines, of course, history and the Bible talk about how they captured him and what happened after that. Okay, so the third example of shaking in the Bible is found in 1 Kings chapter 14, and I am reading from verse 15. For the Lord shall smite Israel as a reed is shaken in the water, and he shall root up Israel out of this good land which he gave to their fathers, and shall scatter them beyond the river, because they have made their groves provoking the Lord to anger. The groves were where they had idol worship and prostitution and a number of different things that went on. Okay, so the third example is about the shaking to God's people who are involved in idol worship, false worship, and they're reaping the results of God's allowing them to be rooted up, to be scattered. And once again, even though this is the third example, it brings us back to Leviticus 26, verse 36, where we had the first example. So already with three examples, the first three examples that we find in the Bible of the use of this word, we find that it's connected to the 25-20, the 7 times, PTSD at the end result. We find that it's pointing out that a people, whether it's an individual or a group of people who are anointed by God, are involved in false worship, and the Lord departs from them. And then we find that the Lord smites them, leaves them shaken and rooted up, and scatters them. And that brings us back to Leviticus 26, where it talks about the scattering and the 7 times, and it happens 4 times in the book of Leviticus 26. And that's how it brings us back to the 25-20, and that's something that would be good for you to study out. So I want to highlight again that this brings us to studying and looking in a different way at these 4 insects in the book of Joel, and how they're talking about a destruction in our personal life as well as in worship, organized worship as well as personal worship. And it's calling us to do the solemn assembly prayer, and God promises, I will restore. And the shaking is about everything going up to this and what happens. That's why we study these lines of prophecy, and we study the Bible and all of that. But the shaking is very much connected to this. And so as I close, I'm going to suggest that you look up in the parables of Jesus where he talks about the fig tree, and he applies that to Jerusalem and to God's people. And I'm going to come back and do more studies with word studies on shaking. But I'm also posting some songs on this particular link having to do with Pass Me By. O gentle Savior, do not pass me by. It's a song that really fits the topic of the shaking and looking at the most holy place in the sanctuary, looking to Jesus as we're praying. Thank you.